In 1995, it seemed to everyone that life couldn't get any better for Mark and Donna Winger. The nuclear technician and his wife, who worked at the hospital, had been happily married for several years and had just adopted a newborn baby girl, Bailey. 3 months later, the people of Springfield were stunned by the news of Donna's brutal murder and marveled at the heroism of Mark, who had shot and killed his wife's crazed killer. For more than 3 years, the police believed Mark's story, until new circumstances arose that forced detectives to look at the case from a very different angle. Murder under strange circumstances. In August 1995, Donna Winger took baby Bailey and traveled to Florida to visit her family. A few days later, they returned to the St. Louis airport and boarded a cab for the 2-hour trip to their home in Springfield. The car was driven by Roger Harrington. Donna was a very attractive woman, which did not escape the attention of Harrington, who began flirting with her, proposing various lewd things. Winger tried to ignore his words and guffawed, but as soon as Donna and her child arrived home, the first thing the woman did was call the cab service and filed a complaint about Harrington's behavior, accusing him of almost harassment. Of course, the driver was suspended from the service and without any proceedings. The same day, Donna told Mark about the incident, who perfectly portrayed empathy and even insisted that the wife filed an official complaint and then went to court. Donna was not aware that her husband had already come up with a cunning plan, and the fate of the young mother was predetermined. Just a few days later, Mark invited Harrington to his home, probably under the pretext of reconciling and helping him return to work. Roger wrote down his address on a piece of paper and drove his car to the Wingers' home on August 29, 1995. Holding a thermos mug of coffee and a pack of cigarettes, Harrington entered the living room, but no sooner had he taken a couple of steps than gunshots rang out and he fell. Mark Winger then moved Roger's body over to Donna, put a hammer in his hand, and called 911. He told the dispatcher that he had shot the man who had killed his wife. When police arrived on the scene, he told officers that he had been working out on a treadmill in the basement and heard a noise upstairs. That's when Mark grabbed his gun and began cautiously making his way upstairs. Looking into the kitchen, he found Harrington swinging a hammer at Donna. In an attempt to protect his wife, he shot Roger twice. Surprisingly, when the police started examining the victims, both Donna and Harrington still had weak pulses. When they told Mark about it, he went into a very strange state. He sat on the couch and started rocking back and forth, not responding to words. The officers wrote it off as shock, and it would not be until years later that it would become clear what he was so frightened of. Steve Weinhoft, a former assistant Sangamon County prosecutor, later recounted, "Donna was clinging to life with all her might, although forensic experts will determine there were at least 7 hammer marks on her head. The chances of her surviving were less than 1%. Sadly, both victims died soon after, as the injuries sustained were not compatible with life." The police, after learning of Donna's conflict with Harrington and hearing Mark's version of events, closed the case within days, naming Roger Harrington as the culprit. It seemed that Mark Winger was able to get away with it. New life. Mark Winger became a single father and took on the task of raising a young daughter. To support the young father, Donna's family came to visit him, but they did not receive a warm welcome. They did not stay long, as Mark actually kicked them out the door, saying that he would hire a nanny. In January 1996, he met 23-year-old Rebecca Simic, who was just looking for a nanny job. "It seemed to me that Bailey was someone who really needed a woman's care, because she had been through so much," Simic later told. Simic got along well with Bailey, and even Donna's family, who came to visit them, agreed that she was like an angel sent to help Mark. Although Rebecca admitted she felt somewhat uncomfortable in the house where 2 people had been brutally murdered. Despite this, Simic strove to surround Bailey with care and warmth. Mark diligently helped Rebecca settle into her new job. After a few months, they became so close that the nanny decided to move into Winger's house, and a couple months later, Simic became pregnant. Rebecca still couldn't get used to the idea that there had been murders in the house, so she suggested that Mark move in. Winger was only too happy to get away from his late wife's pesky relatives. In October 1996, just 14 months after Donna's death, the couple, out of the blue, went on vacation to Hawaii, and got married. I remember asking him how he was able to move on so quickly, Simic recalls. He explained to me that when you have a good person by your side, it's a lot easier to want to start over. Upon his return from Hawaii, Mark sold the house where Donna died and moved his new wife to suburban Springfield. Year after year, they had 3 children. Along with Bailey, whom Rebecca raised as her own daughter, they now had 4 children. Despite the slight chaos due to the large number of children, their life seemed almost perfect. Mark was a loving husband and a great father, but soon everything changed. Confessions of a former lover. One day in early 1999, Mark felt unwell, and Rebecca took him to the hospital, the same one where his late wife worked before her death. There, they happened to meet Donna's best friend and co-worker, Deanne Schultz. Seeing them together, Deanne was visibly upset and even almost cried. It didn't escape Rebecca's notice, as she was reminded of the past when Schultz had been a bit familiar when she'd shown up at Winger's house, as if she intended to take her friend's place as Mark's wife. After they returned home, Rebecca had questioned her husband, but he had managed to talk himself out of it. Mark was not stupid, though, and realized that he shouldn't have shown his face to Deanne with Rebecca, because Schultz had a secret that, if revealed, could derail his life. He was right. In February 1999, Schultz went to the police and told a story that had a bombshell effect. She and Mark had been having an affair long before Donna died. At one point in their relationship, Mark let slip that it would be easier for them if Donna died. Deanne also revealed that right after Donna's fateful trip with Roger Harrington, Mark seemed unusually focused and pensive, which was unlike him. Schultz never thought that when talking about Donna's death, Mark was serious. But as soon as her best friend was found dead, she immediately began to suspect that he was the one who had done it. When Deanne brought it up with Winger, Mark began threatening and intimidating the woman, saying that if she didn't shut up, he would follow Donna. Since her best friend was dead, she had no one else to tell about her fears. Schultz even said that she tried to kill herself several times because she couldn't get rid of the guilt that was eating away at her. When she saw Mark in the hospital accompanied by his caring wife, she decided that she could no longer keep silent. A new investigation. After hearing Schultz's story, the police decided to examine the evidence found at the scene more closely. The more they delved into the once closed case, the more questions they had. Why was no sign of forced entry found at the Winger home that August day? Why did Roger Harrington bring coffee and cigarettes with him if he planned to kill Donna? And why would the killer use the Winger's hammer as a weapon when he had a tire iron and knife in his own car? But the final piece of evidence against Mark was the photographs, either lost or forgotten. The position of the bodies in the photos confirmed that Mark's version of events was simply impossible. Mark Winger stated that Roger Harrington was kneeling next to Donna Winger's head and holding a hammer in his hand, explained Assistant Prosecutor Weinhoft. He stated that after the shot was fired, the man fell down on his back and his feet remained near Donna's head. But photos showed just the opposite, and blood spatter experts agree. Officer Cox, who was involved in the 1996 investigation, told ABC, "I was ashamed of the way the original investigation went. I hurt Roger Harrington's family by sending him to hell in absentia for no reason. I mean, he was an innocent victim." On August 23, 2001, Mark Winger was charged with the murders of Donna Winger and Roger Harrington. At his May 2002 trial, a visibly nervous Deanne Schultz testified against Mark. According to an anonymous source, the court, in exchange for her testimony, guaranteed her immunity. After all, she could be accused of complicity. Mark Winger was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 4 years later, he was sentenced to an additional 35 years in prison for trying to hire a hitman to kill Deanne Schultz while he was still free, 2000 to 2001. In addition, he also wanted to kill a childhood friend from prison who refused to bail him out. After the first charges against Mark, Rebecca couldn't believe what was happening for a long time. But shortly after the trial, she took all 4 children away from Springfield to feel safer. While Mark tried to keep Bailey away from Donna's family, Simic decided to move closer to them. That same year, Rebecca changed all the children's last names from Winger to Simic. We were hurt a lot by the same person, Simic said, but it didn't break us. Since then, Bailey has actually lived with her grandparents, and Rebecca has found a new husband. They are all alive and quite happy,